Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Robert Adams, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Lieutenant Brandon Lehman. 2026 marks 125 years of dedicated service by the Australian Army and its predecessors. Today, we will remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal Sidney Ellis Clare Johnson, and we warmly welcome his family who are in attendance this evening. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you are able, I now invite you to please stand and join in singing the national anthem. For those who are able to do so, you may now be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations over more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal Sidney Ellis Clare Johnson. Sidney Johnson was born to Mary Finney and John Johnson in 1888 at Little Plain, a locality near Inverell, New South Wales. Known as Sid, he was the eldest of 4 children, 3 of whom survived infancy. He attended school locally and went to work as a labourer in the district. He was a member of the local rifle club and earned a reputation as a good shot. Britain entered the First World War in August 1914 when Germany invaded neutral Belgium. They were the first soldiers to leave Australia, fought against Germany's ally, Ottoman Turkey. In January 1915, Johnson travelled to Liverpool Army Camp outside Sydney and volunteered for service in the Australian Imperial Force. After a brief period of training, Johnson was appointed to reinforcements for the Light Horse, a mounted infantry formation. He departed Sydney on board the transport ship Bakara in May, bound for Egypt. At the end of September, Johnson sailed to Gallipoli, where he joined the 1st Australian Light Horse Regiment. The terrain on the peninsula was unsuitable for horses, so the mounted infantry fought on Gallipoli as regular infantry. By the time Johnson arrived, the campaign to advance from the beachheads had failed, and British commanders decided to withdraw from the peninsula. At the end of November, Johnson and the 1st Light Horse returned to Egypt, and by the end of the year, the rest of the RAF had joined them. The Australians spent the early period of 1916 reorganising the Australian Imperial Force. The infantry travelled to France and joined the British forces fighting on the Western Front, while the Light Horse marched east into the Sinai Desert and began the long process of pushing Ottoman forces out of Palestine. The 1st Light Horse spent the first half of 1916 in patrols against pro-Ottoman Arab forces along the Nile River Valley. In June, Johnson fell ill and had a short stay in hospital. When he rejoined the regiment, it had moved to defend British control of the Suez Canal. The 1st Light Horse helped to turn back the Ottoman advance on the canal at the Battle of Romani in August. Late in 1916 and into early 1917, the 1st Light Horse participated in the capture of Ottoman strongpoints Magdala and Rafah, which opened the way into Palestine for British forces. A letter home from Johnson describing the Battle of Magdala was published in his local newspaper. In it, he ascribed the British and Allied success to the good shooting of the artillery. Johnson was wounded at the Battle of Rafah in January 1917 and was treated for only a few days before returning to the regiment. In February, he was promoted to the rank of Lance Corporal, and in June, he passed a course on the Hotchkiss machine gun. The British advance into Palestine, meanwhile, had faltered with the failure to capture the port of Gaza. At the end of October, Australian Light Horse units were among the British mounted men who captured the town of Beersheba, opening the way into Gaza. In early November, Johnson and his regiment were in the process of consolidating the British position in the region. On the 3rd of November 1917, the 1st Light Horse attacked an Ottoman outpost called Tel El Kawalf outside Beersheba. Johnson, manning his Hotchkiss gun, was shot in the head at the beginning of the battle and was killed instantly. He was 29 years old. Sid Johnson was buried near where he fell, but between that time and the end of the war, the location of his grave was lost. His name is recorded on the Jerusalem Memorial, which commemorates more than 3,000 First World War Commonwealth servicemen who died in operations in Egypt and Palestine, but have no known grave. Johnson is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal Sidney Ellis Clare Johnson, who gave his life for us, our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
If you are able, I now invite you to please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.